Welcome back, Year Sixes. So English today. Let's start, as we often do, as we always do, in fact, with a starter. So first one, all I'd like you to do is think about what the combination of words does the noun phrase contain. So it tells you that the noun phrase has been underlined. You've got the angry giant, that's the noun phrase. So which combination of words does the noun phrase contain? So is it noun, verb, and adjective, etc.? I'm not going to read all of it to you, and you're more than capable of doing that yourself. Have a think, and then tell me what sequence does the noun phrase contain. When you've done that, start the video up again. There's two parts to our starter, so I'll then talk you through the second part. Speak to you in a second. Okay, in the second part of our starter, so these are parts of what we call a word family. Word families are things that contain a certain part of the word that has a meaning that links all of those words. So, for example, if you have the word spect, as in S-P-E-C-T, spect, that can be spectacles. It could be spectator. It could be a spectacle. It could be inspector. Now, these are all things to do with sight and looking. Spectacles help us look. Inspector looks for clues. Spectacle is something amazing to see. A spectator is somebody watching something. So they're all to do with sight. But we don't have spect in these words. We have circ, C-I-R-C. And the three words we've been given are circus, circumnavigate, and circle. It's not asking you for what they all mean. It's asking you to write down one word that you can think of that belongs to this same word family. Give you a small clue, just a small one. Think about maths. There's a word that comes up in maths that starts C-I-R-C. There are others too, lots of others, but that one might be the one that comes to mind most easily. When you've done that, write it down. As a bit of an extension, particularly if you normally choose the red challenges, can you work out what circ might mean? C-I-R-C, how does it link them all? So spect, we worked out, means looking. What would circ mean? C-I-R-C. When you've done that, start the video up again, and we'll move on to having a look at what we did on Friday's English lesson. Speak to you in a second. Okay, so on Friday's lesson, and I'm going to have to put myself down at the bottom, and never like that because I end up sort of looking at myself rather than looking at the right place. So on Friday's lesson, we looked at starting and writing our first paragraph. And I have to say, a lot of you did a really good job, which will make today's lesson a little bit trickier, but still really important. We'll get on to that in a minute. We looked at making sure we included certain things. So we looked at doing things like, and that line definitely should be a little bit lower. Are they all going to come up above it? They are. These should be below the words. Using different sentence types. So single word starters to really engage our reader right from the beginning and grab their interest. Very vowels. We talked about getting personification and that figurative language in. That one should be underneath steady, monotonous. I think it must be because I've moved everything down to fit the word recap in. So it's all slightly in the wrong place. Steady, monotonous dripping. So we talked about using expanded noun phrases. Ancient, unyielding granite. Again, another expanded noun phrase. We have one noun phrase and one expanded noun phrase. We have sort of use of direct speech, even if it's just for the sounds that are being made underneath. And I talked about that in some detail as well. Breath held, teeth clenched, fists balled. He waited to see if he had been heard. We talked about using those Alan Peat sentence types. Show, give 3 examples, apart from I did. Give 3 examples, show. Fist ball, oh, sorry, no, that one is like some giant stomach churning in hunger. Again, we've got those pieces of personification, similes, all being used in those lots of different figurative language types being used in our opening paragraph, because they really grab the reader's attention. They help the reader picture the scene you're trying to describe to them, and that's what we want. Please tell me that was just the sound of your tummy rumbling because you haven't eaten enough breakfast Elliot breathlessly stammered to Virgo. We've got that use of direct speech, because as well as building our setting, we want to try and start building our character too. We don't have to do them as two separate paragraphs. In fact, a good writer won't. They'll try and do both at the same time, each one supporting and enhancing the other. We've got, again, some direct speech there, and then some last bits down at the bottom. So that's what we did on Friday. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at editing and improving our writing. And we're going to use the paragraph we wrote on Friday. I might have already given some of you some slight hints about what you could improve, but I purposefully tried not to say too much on Friday's feedback, because I wanted you to do this yourself. Spot your own mistakes and edit and improve them yourself. The way we're going to do that, and what I'll be looking for you doing, is that I can clearly see that you've looked back at yesterday's writing and that you've identified any errors. There were errors in all of them. That's not because you're not good writers and it's not me being harsh. There are errors in everybody's pieces of writing. There are errors in mine. You've seen it where I've noticed them on these videos. I've noticed my own errors. You just saw an error there. It wasn't to do with the writing, but it was an error on where things lined up. We make mistakes. We're not machines. That's part and parcel of being a writer, that we make errors. I've been reading some books during lockdown on my bookcase behind me, or my bookcase over that side, and I spot things even then. And they've been written by a professional author, they've been checked by that professional author, and then they've had a proofreader and an editor check them and sign off on them, and there's still mistakes. That's just life. We make mistakes. So we're going to try and identify them now. I'm going to try and spot them myself. We're going to then try and make sure we're correcting any punctuation and spelling corrections that we need. And there are plenty in there. So that's about getting your finger out and reading one word at a time what you've written to check that each word is right. Even if you don't know for certain, that's when you check. If you go, I'm not convinced about that word, then you check it. Or if you think, hang on, that feels like that's a really long sentence. Do I need to think about what's my subject, what's my verb, what's my object? Okay, well, that's my sentence then. I'm done. Why have I carried it on without anything? I either need a full stop or I need a semicolon if they're closely linked. So that's something we need to do. And then obviously, once we've done those things, you should be then making your amendments and your improvements, and thereby improving your writing, which is what we're going to look at today. Now, what I've done is I've written down a not particularly great first sort of 2 sentences, 3 sentences maybe, of a paragraph. The cave was really dark and Elliot was feeling very scared. From deep within the cave there came a deep moan. Looking at one another, Elliot and Virgo shared a look that clearly showed how nervous they both were. So, if I was to have done that as my work and I was looking to up-level it, the first thing I'd be doing is I'd be getting my finger and I'd be following along each word. And I'd be checking for obvious mistakes. The cave was really dark and Elliot was feeling very scared. Now, there's no obvious mistakes there. Spelling's fine. Capital letters are in the right place. No missing punctuation. Yeah. In terms of mistakes, I'm happy. There aren't any. Next sentence then. From deep within the cave, there came a deep moan. Now, there is a mistake there. There's only one that I can see. You might have spotted more. But there is only one. See if you can spot what the mistake is. So pause, have a read over that second sentence. What's the mistake? What have I spelt wrong? What punctuation is in the wrong place? What might be missing? See if you can spot it. I'll give you a clue. I'm just going to say the word adverbial. See if that helps. Have you got it? Yeah. There's a front adverbial. From deep within the cave, comma, there came a deep moan. Because it could go the other way around. There came a deep moan from deep within the cave. So we need the comma because it's a subordinate clause. Other than that, though, it's fine. Fine being the key word. We'll talk about that word in a moment. Okay, final sentence. Looking at one another, Elliot and Virgo shared a look that clearly showed how nervous they both were. It's a longer sentence there, and there are 2 commas missing. Can you spot where the commas should be, please? That's a bit of a challenge for you. If you're in school, you can just talk about it. If you're at home, you can write it out. Looking at one another, Elliot and Virgo shared a look that clearly showed how nervous they both were. I'm trying not to put the pauses in. This time I'm going to do it with the pauses in. See if you can spot where the commas would be. Looking at one another, Elliot and Virgo shared a look that clearly showed how nervous they both were. Commas should be looking at one another, front adverbial. So that's looking at one another, comma. Elliot and Virgo shared a look, comma, that clearly showed how nervous they both were, because that is a relative pronoun and it is adding a relative clause on the end. So that would be my first job. Read over, make sure you've corrected errors. That's the first thing. Spotting mistakes, correcting those errors. But that is not all we're doing today. Editing is not just checking for mistakes. Editing is to do with improving and making the work the best it could be. And I think we can all agree this is not the best piece of writing it could be. Let's look at that first sentence again. The cave was really dark and Elliot was feeling very scared. Boring, we're year 6. We're better than this. The cave was really dark. That's tedious. Elliot was very scared. I mean, it's a compound sentence, but it's about as boring as it gets. So what I'd be doing is I'd be getting a blue for review, but if you don't have a blue for review at home, just use any pen you want. Getting my black pen, and I'd be making some corrections there. Well, not corrections, improvements. And I'm going to think back to those shared writes we've done in the past. I want to start with a single word. If the cave is really dark, rather than saying the cave was really dark, boring, rather than doing that, darkness, full stop, powerful, straight away the reader's hooked. The type of darkness that drains you of your bravery and seeps away your confidence. So don't just say something dark, really go deep into it. Make it scary. Clearly that's what you're doing. That's why we use darkness. So make it scary. Taking a deep breath, showing, not telling, Elliot forced himself to remain calm. So I get all the information that I need in that, but it's so much better. Far, far more interesting. The second sentence. From deep within the cave, there came a deep moan. Immediately I spot something that drives me mad. I hate it when I see it. It shows a rubbish vocabulary. Why have I used deep twice in one sentence? Shouldn't be using deep in 2 or 3 sentences more than once. Show you've got a wide vocabulary. Let's try rewriting that. Deep from the bowels of the cave. I'm using that word bowels. I like it. I like the way it works. I like the personification. I think it's really sort of dramatic. I think it puts you in the scene. I know it's one I've used before. You can nick it. This is what you should be doing. You should be hearing a word and going, bam, I like that word. I'm having that. Deep from the bowels of the cave, there came an almighty, blood-curdling moan. Almighty, comma, blood-curdling moan. 3 words. One of them's a noun. Therefore, it must be an expanded noun phrase. 2 adjectives and a noun. Straight in. Full stop. Immediately, comma, front adverbial. The noise made Elliot's heart thunder in his chest. Not really thundering in his chest, that's a metaphor, but we're getting that figurative language in, and we're also showing, not telling. Elliot's clearly nervous. If I tie that together with taking a deep breath and his heart thundering in his chest, I'm really pushing that point home. Elliot is nervous. That makes us as a reader nervous. Make our protagonist nervous, then we know something bad might happen. We start getting nervous. Our heart starts pumping. Now there's so much work needs doing with this last one. So let's start having a look. Seeking some small hint of reassurance, bit of alliteration at the start there, seeking some small, always nice, seeking some small hint of reassurance, comma, front adverbial, Elliot turned to Virgo. Now that's a main clause, but the next one's going to be connected closely. So semicolon, and then I can go with another main clause. Sadly, comma, front adverbial again, she had the exact same look of despair and horror that he had. So this is so much better, just from taking a bit of time, paying a bit of attention and working in some of those techniques that we've practiced. The reason we've practiced them is so that you can get them in, so that you can make sure every sentence you need to go, right, what am I going to do this time? What skill am I going to show? How do I show off all of my ability and all of my excellence? I'm doing it by doing this, this, and this. This is my sentence. I'm putting them all in. This is my sentence. What have I not done yet? This. I'm going to stick this in. And I need to do that here. I need to look at what I've done. I've used single words to build drama. I've used a range of sentence types. I've used fronted adverbials. I've used expanded noun phrases. I've used Allen Peet sentence types. I've used figurative language like personification and metaphors. I've used alliteration. I've not yet done any direct speech. And I don't want there to be loads, but I want to get that in there so I can show I've got that skill. So I do. So I put that in the next time, being aware of what skills I've already shown so that I can make sure I show all of them. And that comes from reading back over your work. And here we are, some direct speech. Inverted commas. Well, at least we know that we're going in the right direction, comma, close the inverted commas. Virgo said, comma, forcing herself to sound more confident than she really was. Don't mind said, as long as you then explain how it's been said. If you just put said, whoosh, back down to year 3. I mean, I can't really do that, of course I can't, but that's a year 3 thing. Come on, we can do better than just said. Said, Virgo said, forcing herself to sound more confident than she really was, comma, speech marks, that's something, I suppose, close the speech. That is a much better opening paragraph. And that's what your editing should be like, taking each sentence at a time, scanning, reading carefully for errors, correcting the errors, correcting punctuation, correcting spelling, then improving on top of that as well. In fact, it should look a little bit like this. So your steps to good reading, in Cyprus, you've done this before. We've done editing stops around the classroom where we go to different places to do different editing. And it's similar to that. So the first thing is always check for missing or incorrect punctuation, including capital letters. That's step 1. That's the easiest thing to look for. Have I got my punctuation in? Have I used capital letters right? Someone in my class, you know who you are, I'm not going to say your name. You need to check for capital letters. You're brilliant at it recently. Keep that up. After that, next step. Read over your work carefully and check for those spelling mistakes. That's the second step. And yes, there are some in that picture. After that, final step. Read over your vocabulary and ensure that you are using the best words in the context. This is just for the checking at the moment. So check that you're happy with each of those words. Can you improve the words? Then you look to improve it overall. That's when you look at, right, have I used the skills? Can I put them in? What can I add? How can I improve? What can I tweak? That is the steps to good editing. And that's your task today. Look back at Friday's paragraph that you wrote. If for whatever reason you didn't write the paragraph for Friday, well, that's your first task. Get that written so you've got something to edit for this lesson. Most of you did though, so we're fine. But that's your task, editing and improving that paragraph. Hope that makes sense. I look forward to seeing your edits, and they will be. Editing can make things look a bit messy. If you need to rewrite underneath it, do little stars or numbers or whatever, or just rewrite it underneath. But I want to see where you've made corrections, where you've changed things, the words that you've improved. I want to see them both side by side, what it started as, what it is now, so I can see the improvement. That is your task. Look forward to seeing them. Have a lovely day with the rest of your day. I'll be back with you tomorrow for your big read and your English. But for now, goodbye.